course, deciding neutrality meaning you can't intervene. Of course, we all know on the steamship, the United States has an open channel with the United Kingdom and Great Britain, supplying them with raw materials and raw resources. So, of course, this is another paradigm that needs to be discovered. Another aviator and lady legend was Elizabeth Coleman, a.k.a. Bessie. Okay? Bessie Coleman was the first African American to receive a pilot license in the country, and also the first person, also the first with an international pilot license earned in France. Now, Bessie was an impressionable 16-year-old when she found out about Harriet Quimby becoming the first woman pilot licensed in the United States. In 1977, some female aviators out of Chicago started the Bessie Coleman Aviators Club. And in 2000, the world will be exposed to its first Bessie Coleman African American Heritage Stamp, which was long overdue. Both of these great African American women trailblazed in a field that is dominated by men. They experienced sexism, misogyny, racism, of every aspect of this ultra-masculine attitude that sometimes flows in the aviation community. But they eventually were exposed and empowered, and they got ahead. Okay? They created a better life for themselves, they created a better life for others. They became role models. In order to stress the importance of aviation and aeronautics, we must first recognize the humble roots of the father, of course, of the global black aviation. U.S. Southernite and Georgia-born Mr. Eugene Jacques Bullard, who in World War I became a member of France's Foreign Legion and in 1917 flew for the French Air Force while facing supremacy. Of course, Bullard found out that he could not participate in the way that he wanted to in the United States military. We must also embrace men like Mr. Bullard and his legacy. He later became one of France's most decorated military heroes and died on October 12, 1961. Just in the case of Bessie Coleman, Mr. Bullard had to master another language, and that language was French, to become completely educated. Mr. Bullard gained from his exposure to another culture, and he got ahead. He got ahead of his African American friends. Mr. Bullard was a noted welterweight boxer, having fought internationally. He was also a jockey. His brother was hung, or he was hanged by a lynch mob, and his mother died when he was 6 years old. So, of course, Mr. Bullard also ran away from home. We have extensive information on all this through research, but let's just say he went through a lot before he reached his adult years. A Blood Runs Red was painted on his fuselage. We must all become true transporters of history and misslayers of rumors. And I'll say that again. We must all become true transporters of history and misslayers of rumors. We must bridge the gaps of intercultural differences and intergenerational differences and find more ways to tell not just the African Americans, but all persons about the glory and the glorious history that black aviators have. Remember, we are not just an intercultural community, we are a global community. So we have to educate European Americans, we have to educate Asian Americans, we have to educate Native Americans, we have to educate Southern Americans, everybody south of the Rio Grande River. We have to educate people that don't look like us, okay, about people that look like us. Okay, so that's the important thing. As a historian, I have broken down my views of the journey of African Americans in aviation down to 3 eras. Number 1, the pre-Tuskegee era. And this era dates 1914 to 1939. And in this era, we have persons like Mr. Cornelius Coffey and Ms. Willa Brown. They promoted an all-black air derby and a flight school. Actually, Mrs. Brown was the first to serve in the Civil Air Patrol, and they operated a private flight school. And this was in the Harlem Airport in Chicago's South Side. Coffey was the first African-American airframe and engine mechanic in 1931. Of course, him and his wife helped train over 1,500 military pilots. The second era is the Tuskegee era. Now, this era reaches from 1940 to about 1946. In this era, we have these household names like Benjamin Davis Jr., classes 42C to 45D, flight instructors. We have the Tuskegee experiment, not to mention the Civic experiment. We have the CPTV, Maxwell Air Force Base, Auburn University, and all things in that area, along with the institution. In the post-Tuskegee era, now this era dates 1947 to the present times. In this era, we have these modern days. We have persons of color who are astronauts. We have persons of color who are ranking members in the military. We have persons of color that are knocking down barriers in aviation and in our armed services. In this era, and perhaps some of you may have lived through more than one of these eras, okay, this just gives you an opportunity to share the valuable lessons that you've learned in this phase of aviation and to become that storyteller, that myth slayer, that historian, and that truth transporter. You have to make it fashionable, you have to make it marketable, and you have to keep it real, as the young folks would say. This is a wonderful world of aeronautics and aviation to explore. We have to let them know this. That is what the BPA is doing for communities all over the country. It's just here in Pine Bluff this weekend. Of course, they've gone to Houston, Texas, and they also support other aviation factories. I should stress that our young people need to consider other avenues of getting ahead. We have to do a better job of promoting what we deem as positive and realistic ways of getting a leg up on the field. We have to involve our youth with political landscapes. We have to involve our youth in historical landscapes. We have to involve our youth in aviation landscapes. I recently involved some of our youth in the political scene. Of course, we all know what's going on in this historic election year with John McBush and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. We know what's going on, okay? Now, I mean, we can have them involved in these types of things without them having cultural amnesia. We can get people involved without them being ostracized for what they believe in. And that's the whole point of seeing more than one way. I have a marketing scheme that needs to be reviewed by the highest ranks in the aviation community. I think the BPA should consider a partner-up program with some of the most influential genres of music today. That's right. I'm a product of the hip-hop culture. I am a hip-hop baby. Okay? Yes, I am. I think the BPA should, and this is just a consideration, should team up with the hip-hop community. Now hear me out before you start going, hear me out. I think we need to target positive rappers, executives, producers, and labels who are willing to responsibly and intelligently promote aviation in their music videos. You need to get them to donate to your nonprofits, to your camps, and to your workshops. Hear me out. We need to offer rappers lessons on how to fly. Okay? If you do that, I kid you not, we need to bridge these gaps here. Okay? If you need help, I've met Jay-Z, I've met David Banner, he has a history degree. He's in Louisiana. Okay? I've met Master P, I've met Juvenile, and others. This could be a very formidable avenue, and one that has probably never been experienced in the history of hip-hop or aviation. I think, and some of you are going to not like me for this, but I think the face of aviation may be in need of a facelift. Okay? Get a celebrity to be a spokesman. I mean, I know you guys have Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, etc., who's in touch, and he's an intergenerational figure. But I think we need, if we want to touch the younger crowd, you might want to, get somebody that looks like them. Okay?